Just presenting myself, I'm Cristian. I came from Brazil. I've been working as a software developer for over, I think, 9 years now. Been living here in Berlin for over a year now, more or less. I've been working at SumUp for over 6 months, more or less now. If you like, wherever you're gonna see here in this talk, please come to talk to me later, and we can share your experience and my experience, and we can have a good conversation. And if you are looking for some different positions here in SumUp, we are hiring, of course. Everyone is it, right? Okay. What's I gonna talk? Can I just? It's better. I'm gonna talk today a little about automated testing, a little about the background, also unit testing, how to do that in the front-end perspective, a little about UI testing, how it was done in the past and how it's done now by using React, using other kind of frameworks where they abstract the DOM. A little about the TDD and React, how to do that, how to make it possible, and we're gonna finish with some good practices and some advice that's in order to have some good tests, testable code and good tests environment. So when I was creating this talk, I was thinking how do I explain the background of from where it came from the unit test and automated tests. So I thought, okay, I need to talk about the history. But I'd like to talk and not boring you to death. So I thought, how can I do that? How can I give this context without boring yourself, your guys, right? So I borrowed from a movie where they made a trademark on top of it. So here you go. The old culture where the big companies, basically the whole industry, the whole process of delivery was like really slow and really bureaucratic. The QA was like really bureaucratic, really manual, and that's this culture led to a lot of kind of problems. For example, no confidence for changing code, fear of regression for each change, for each release, legacy code that just works. Everyone has already seen those codes that it's supposed to not touch. Eternal fight among developers and QAs because developers want to refactor the code and make it easier or make it better, and the QAs just want to not touch the code, to not invest bugs. A lot of stress, and people basically were not happy, and a lot of time and money was wasted. And then came the agile culture, which was like the idea of releasing fast, changing fast, really fast life cycles, and in order to keep the quality, they came up with this idea of automating whatever was possible, testing, DevOps, whatever, in order to have these fast cycles. And then talking about automated tests, we can divide them in basically 3 great groups, which are the unit tests, which probably you already know, which is like the smallest part of your code, in order to test using the smallest part of your code. The integration tests, where it's a more high-level tests, where you could, use some fake databases or some fake API. And the smoke tests, which is more like the highest level of testing, where you literally simulate clicks and simulate events on your page by spinning a web browser or some Selenium or something like this. We're going to talk about unit tests today, more focused. When you think about tests, also I remember this post of Martin Fowler, where he explained how you could how you could, what's the best strategy for testing your code. Because at the best, UI testing, which means like clicking and verifying your app, was really slow and really expensive. For example, simple test could take, I don't know, 2 minutes to run. So if your app has a lot of fields or has a lot of things to test. And in this strategy, it says that you're supposed to focus more in unit testing, because there you can ensure more the quality of your code, and spend less money and time doing that. And why it's important to have all these tests, not only focusing on only one, because that could happen. You have a lot of unit tests, but you don't have integration tests, and basically you have these problems where your testing is passing, but you are having problems there. So, talking about the tests, some time ago, testing UI was really crappy. Was really you had to use this tool, or that tool, or this one. No worries, if you don't know those tools, you were happier. Trust me, you were way happier. I think that's Selenium, it's Frontend.js, and then this other one was something for Angular or something like this. So yeah, and then they basically React came with this idea of abstracting the DOM and making it easy for dealing with the DOM. So as a consequence, it made it easier for testing as well. Also, Enzyme brought some good abstraction on top of that React test utils, and basically we are good to go for having really good testable or good test coverage on the front end. Nice, but unit tests for UI, does it work? And so it's time for pros and cons. Unit tests for UI, the first pros, it's like fast response on changing. I don't know, for me, I love, actually I hate having to refresh my browser all the time in order to see something happening on my app. So when I do unit test or unit test my code, it's easier to have like a fast response of what's happening, if the filter or wherever you are implementing it's working or not. You have less regressions, of course. You are testing your code. You are ensuring that the logic that you are implementing it's working. That's really important. You have more confidence for changing, and that's the thing. It's refactoring, because we don't make code, the best code in the first time. We do it. We solve problems, and then we go back to the code and we think about the code afterwards, and we make it more readable, or we use good designs and stuff. So that's pretty important. Another good thing is having a better component or code design, because you think about how you'll be at the usage of your code or component or function or whatever you're doing. So it's a consequence. Also, it's usually testable code. It's usually has a good design. Life, that's really important, because we hate doing the documentation, right? So if you have, that's true. we hate doing documentation. But if you have unit tests or testable or really good test coverage, you have basically a live documentation, especially for open source. When I am trying to contribute to some open source project, I go to the test, I read the test, and I understand what's this module or what's this code supposed to do. So it's a live documentation. It's pretty cool. And it's pretty cool also. It makes it really easier for reviewing the code. When you make your pull requests, basically wherever the changes you are doing, it's there in the scribe, it's there in the tests. So it's make it easier for your colleagues to review the code. And the cons, of course, there are cons, and we need to maintain them, right? It's hard. I mean, I know it's hard. It's sometimes you're gonna make some tests that are so brittle that they broke all the time. Probably, I don't know, you're gonna make some tests that are hard to maintain because they mock the whole world. I don't know. It's hard to maintain. It's not an easy task. So React came and gave us this really nice abstraction and those really cool tools. But why is it still so hard to test? Oops. It's because of bad code design, right? And okay, the solution is just make good code design, right? It's simple. It's just a matter of applying all these concepts, solid, simple composition, good abstraction stuff. And for JavaScript, it's very easy, right? It's just you just need to add some frameworks on top of it, so it's fine. But why bad code design is hard to test? Usually it's because your function or your components is non-deterministic. What that means? For example, in this code here, you can see date. You are generating date there. And it's really hard to test when you need to mock, for example, dates. Also, usually you see these functions that are hard to test. They do a lot of things. They concatenate stuff. They parse stuff. You start feeling the pain of testing the code, and then you usually it's a sign for refactoring your code. You may say, "Oh no, it's just a matter of mocking the dates." Yeah. Go ahead, go there, mock the dates, mock the whole word, and try it. Let's just use this snippet there, and I'm quite sure this code doesn't work. Quite sure. And you see that you made a really big mock there, and probably it doesn't work. And the same principle goes for components as well. If you, for example, your component is fetching data, it's relying a lot on states, also it's non-deterministic, for example, also it's hard to test. So usually when you start doing unit tests, you start thinking about a better design, thinking about how to make it composable. So nice, and how can we do that without thinking, without suffering the pain of changing the code in order to test? Usually TDD, it's a good practice for it because you think beforehand on how the API of your code is going to look like, or how you're going to use these components of this function beforehand. So usually you don't need to think about testable code. You go by the flow, for example. So today is sweet. It's really sweet. And but how do we do that? What's TDD? How does it work? Basically, it's a flow or a process where you start writing your tests, or you start thinking about the use case of your code or components or function or whatever beforehand, and write tests for it. As soon as the test is right, you wrote the test, you can create the implementation. Basically, I hope you can see. No, probably not, but. It's basically that you write your tests. For example, this component there, it's really small. But basically, it's you write your component, your use case, and basically it's gonna fail your test, and then you go there and implement the thing. The idea is to implement the smallest thing in order to pass the test, because then you can grow your code, in a more smooth way. Let's say, and you're gonna think about the edge cases and stuff, and basically that's the whole idea of TDD. It's pretty simple, but it's not. It's kind of hard in the beginning. So TDD, you may think, oh no, TDD is dead, as DHH has said. But does it work? You may ask. What time is it? Times of pros, right? So let's try one pros for example, this is a really nice fact because was Microsoft has made a research, and they found out that teams that use TDD, they have from 40 to 80% less bugs in their code. Oh, that means it's a research, so it's basically something that was proved. Usually you have a better objects or better functional components. APIs, that's especially good if you are doing open source, because open source, if you are doing a library or something, usually what you provide is an API for the users, right? So if you are thinking as a user beforehand, that's pretty cool, because you're going to struggle as a user beforehand. Usually it leads to, as I said before, documentation, it's nice. So using TDD, it leads to a really descriptive tests. Because you think about the use case, you think about how you're going to describe the test that you are doing. That's pretty much leads to a really good descriptive test. And of course, fast feedback loop, because you're going to do bring, head, bring, refactor process, and it's pretty simple. The cons, it's hard in the beginning. It's really hard in the beginning because you usually don't know exactly how to make it or how to do it, or usually you don't have all the information needed for implementing your component or your function or whatever. So it's hard in the beginning. Sometimes you need to know well, what you are going to implement, and it's a really important part, because sometimes you start doing something and you don't know exactly what is the requirements. So probably you're gonna do something, you're gonna direct your component for some path, and basically or some information was missing, and then you basically need to redo it, remake it. So yeah, that's important, especially if you are doing some big refactoring in legacy code. Then it's especially good example for doing TDD, because you know exactly what the code is supposed to do, so it's pretty simple. And it takes some extra time. Sometimes the manager or something doesn't allow or whatever. To be honest, I think it's like a really not a bullshit, excuse, because it's when you do tests, it's not for your manager, it's not for your company, it's for you as a developer. Because you want to go to the weekend and not thinking about something broken or something like this. So yeah, it takes an extra time. I'm not gonna lie to you, but it's totally worth it. But cool, I am sold. But what now? How do I do it? How do I test my code? Well, some best practices. Well, when I am doing some tests, I usually think about the logic. I don't care that much about coverage. Some people say, oh, we have to have 100% of coverage. For me, it's not like an important metric. You can have 70%, and it's really good. So I think always in testing logic. And by logic, I mean wherever you have an if, math, a for loop, or a map, you're supposed to test it. Also, in components, when you are testing logic, it's pretty simple. You basically, I don't know if you know Enzyme. It's basically a render. It's a render. It renders for it renders for a Tony memory, so you can find things on it. You can query it. So it's pretty simple. Also, I like to use the given when then pattern. It's a Martin Fowler that came up with this pattern, I guess. At least I read in his blog. It basically says you need to split the blocks in three. One is where is the state right now, what's happened, and what is the final state. It's pretty simple. It's pretty good. It's descriptive. So yeah. So another thing that's nice to test is interaction. For example, here interaction, what that means is like when you are clicking, for example, in your component, what's happening. So in order to test it, also Enzyme has like a really nice API where you can simulate clicks, simulate whatever event you want, and then you can basically test it. You can see if the function that you are passing to it has been called or not. It's pretty simple. And another one, which is pretty cool also, it's a snapshot, but it's pretty convenient, the snapshot, but as everything in software development, everything that is convenient comes with a cost. And the cost of the snapshot is that it's not descriptive. Just if you don't read the description, you can't figure out what this code is doing. So you need to have a really good description for snapshots. Also, a drawback of snapshots is that it's pretty easy to update it. So if you, for example, has, I don't know, 10 snapshots fading, probably you're gonna update it and then you're gonna not, like, one by one, check it. So probably you can like introduce some bugs and you never know. If you're one of your colleagues that doesn't catch it on the pull request, so basically that's the drawback. It's pretty simple. The snapshot, how it works, is pretty simple. It makes like it's ports. Actually, you save a file with the representation of your components. Basically, it depends on what kind of render you are using. It's a save of the file on some representation for you. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. So just to finish, some best practices that I like to point it out. It's like, as I said, testing logic and interaction is nice. Using the pattern even when then. There are other patterns also, but this is the one of the most common, I guess. Good test description in order to have like the live documentation. And I think the most important one is that the test should be simple. If your tests are not simple, you have a really smell. How can we figure out if our tests are not simple? If it has like and an or in it, in the description. Why is it? Because usually your function is supposed to do only one thing, because it's simple responsible, right? So if your test has and or, probably it's doing more than one thing. But it's just a smell. It's not like, oh my god, I need to change it. It's just a smell. Another one is like you are mocking too much stuff. If you are mocking too much stuff, it's another sign that you supposed to, I don't know, refactor and make it simple. If you're, or I don't know, dependency injection, why not? And this is not just a smell. That's the whole poop. If your test is big or complex, then you have a really big smell, and you're supposed to think in some using some design pattern or whatever that makes it simple, or injecting dependencies or whatever in order to make it simple. Basically, that's it. Thank you guys for watching. And thanks for having me.